Wow, what a great race this was. I mean, talk about cinema. Cinema. This was great. From the get-go. From the get-go. This was a great race. Japanese Grand Prix. Suzuka, you have my heart. I mean, we're talking about just some absolutely phenomenal stuff here. I am so happy that we have Kimi Antonelli at number one, finishes the race in first. So let's talk a little bit about my instant reaction to this race. Yes, it is 1:47 in the morning. Yes, I'm doing a live reaction, mainly because it was that good of a race. Let's talk about that start, okay? I'm assuming everybody knows how the race went, so we'll talk about the start. It was so interesting to see Kimi Antonelli have a tire spin at the start, and I think he went all the way back to P6. He ended up getting passed, and I think he ended up maybe in fifth. At one point, he was in P5, and so that was a big issue, and that was the first couple laps. Piastri ended up taking the lead and looked like he was going to run away with the race. Russell didn't look like he was going to be able to catch him. You had the two Ferraris going at it. Obviously, the biggest issue, and we all know, was the safety car that happened after Ollie Behrman's crash. Let's talk a little bit about Ollie Behrman's crash. We know that from qualifying, Ollie didn't have a good qualifying session. I think he qualified P19, I think, maybe P18, something along those lines. And he just didn't have the same pace that Esteban Ocon had. Essentially, what happened is Ollie was trying to overtake Colapinto, and he was going 25 to, I think it was 40 kph faster than Colapinto, and Colapinto kind of cut in a little bit, and obviously there was no penalty for Colapinto there because it's just regular racing, and just the speed that Behrman had in comparison to Colapinto was just too much. It ended up that Ollie Behrman actually had to swerve a little bit, and he ended up going right through the median, and he couldn't get out of it, and he was going too fast. Now, this was the crazy part about this crash. Ollie Behrman sustained 50 Gs of impact on this crash. I mean, if you go and watch this crash, it looks awful. I felt awful about it. Like, I sat there and I was like, wow, this is awful. And so it's really glad, like, especially when you see him on the ground and he's kind of holding his ankle and he's limping really bad, and you're just saying, oh my God, I hope he's going to be okay. Turns out he didn't have any fractures. That's okay. He ended up having a knee contusion, I think, but no fractures, no bones broken. And that's all good. Obviously, a terrible thing to happen, terrible crash. But what that led to was a complete shakeup of the order, because when Ollie Behrman crashed, he crashed in lap 23, I think, right around 23. And this was a serious problem because with the medium tires, the typical time that you take medium tires, like in terms of laps, is 15 to 21 laps, at least on this course specifically in Suzuka. And so what ended up happening was almost everyone except Antonelli, Verstappen, Gasly, and a couple other of the midfield packs had already pitted. And as a matter of fact, George Russell, who was behind Piastri, and both Piastri and Russell were at the lead and in the front, they ended up pitting right before. Well, Piastri pitted in lap 15, and then Russell ended up pitting right before the crash. And so he ended up behind Piastri where he was supposed to be had there not been a crash. But then, because the crash happened, you get 10 seconds as opposed to 23 seconds that usually happen from the pit stop. And so what ended up happening is Antonelli pits, gets 10 seconds, Hamilton pits, gets 10 seconds, as opposed to the 23. They save 13 seconds on the whole race, and they start out in a much better position than they did. Antonelli ends up in first, ahead of Piastri, ahead of Russell, and Russell's really upset about this because he's now in P3 when he was thinking that he was going to be in P2, and he thinks, okay, all I got to do is get past Piastri, and then potentially Antonelli will give me the position back. But what ends up happening is Antonelli has a restart. He has a great restart. He gets up to 1.8 second gap in between Piastri within a lap, and then George Russell ends up getting passed, I think, by Lewis Hamilton, and then stays ahead of him. George Russell's now behind, and then he gets passed again. And at this time, Norris is also behind George Russell. And so now there's this big train, and everyone's on hard tires at this point. Everyone's on even tires with just a little bit of difference in terms of when they actually pitted. So now you have a pretty clean race. Everybody's on hards that's in the front in the points. You also have, I think, Esteban Ocon, who ended up in P9 or P10 at the time. You had Liam Lawson, who also ended up in P8, I think, or P9 at the time. So anyway, overall, the pit stop window usually was already closed. It was supposed to be closed at the time that the safety car came out, but the teams that still had drivers left actually ended up benefiting more. So it kind of shook up the whole race order. But then you have Kimi Antonelli pulling away, ultimately winning the race by almost 13 and a half seconds. So Kimi completely took this race by storm. He was the only one lapping in the 132s. He lapped a 132.432, I think, something along those lines. And he had a phenomenal race. But think about this. We have not seen the McLarens have a great race. Haven't seen it, because they haven't started the last race. Neither of them started in China. And now the surprise of the weekend and driver of the day, Oscar Piastri, who probably would have won this race without that safety car. That is a huge deal, because what that means is that McLaren is not as far away from Mercedes as we thought. And as a matter of fact, my next prediction may have Oscar Piastri as a podium. Just a little heads up. This is great news. On top of that, we have a whole nother month after this race, all of April, which there's no races because Bahrain and Saudi Arabia are both canceled due to outside conditions and external factors. And there may be more races that get canceled, probably not Miami. So with that in mind, we're going to have a solid month of upgrades and changes to the car and testing that the teams are going to run that are going to get these teams closer to where Mercedes is at. What that means is this race shows you that McLaren is in it, Mercedes and Ferrari are in it. Mercedes is, to me, now we're looking at Kimi Antonelli as the favorite. And that's a huge deal, because if you actually watch this race, you could have heard what Crofty said. He said, because, I mean, you think about it, Antonelli won by 13 and a half seconds. He ran away with this race. He absolutely did. And that is very similar to Max Verstappen and what Max Verstappen was doing for the last 4 years. So all I'm saying is, I think Antonelli is now the forerunner. I think he is now the rabbit that is going to have to get caught by any of these other people that want to try to win the Drivers' Championship. I even think George Russell is now going to have to try to catch Antonelli, even though I don't think he has the same pace. So this is a huge race, has huge ramifications for everything that's going on. And it shows us how good this race could have been, because you had Norris and you had Hamilton in duels, you had Russell and Leclerc in duels, almost the entire race. You had Verstappen chasing Gasly the entire time for almost 30 laps, and he couldn't catch him. He passed him one time and then got passed right back, and he was stuck in the 0.5 to 0.7 range the entire time. I was out of my chair most of the time because I just thought this was such a good race. So driver of the day obviously has to go to Oscar Piastri for finally being able to start a race and getting P2. And he probably would have won the whole thing, as I already said. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So then you also have to talk about Esteban Ocon, who got a point today. Good for him. Haas looked pretty good. Didn't look good for Ollie Behrman this week, as we know. But Esteban Ocon still showing that the Haas still has a very good car and definitely capable of getting points. We also saw my predictions for the Japanese Grand Prix. I think I went 8 of 10 on predictions in terms of the drivers that made it into the top 10. I will be posting a video on that soon. And congratulations to Aston Martin for actually finishing a race. Good job, Fernando. You did good.